This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC. I'm here with Vincent Metzo, who is Dean of Personal Training at the Swedish Institute, which is a football throw away from where we are at our Blender workspace here. Vincent, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pete. Nice to be here.
So typically our podcasts have been with companies that are providing a service and have brands in the industry. And I think people tend to forget that in order to provide results and helping people live a healthier and better lifestyle, that it takes people on the ground that understand personal training and understand kinesiology and understand, how the body works. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you to, do two things. One, make sure that people that are getting into the industry and want to pursue a career in personal training or being a fitness entrepreneur know that this associate degree is available versus just a certification. And also for people to understand that, when somebody says, I've studied for 2 to 3 to 4 years, to get this degree, that it's not some crash course that they took on YouTube.
Absolutely, absolutely. Being in New York, as you said, we're a football throw away from here, although you must have quite an arm.
I do, actually. Thank you for opining on that.
In New York, people typically come to New York to be actors and dancers and musicians, and it's kind of interesting because we tend to think, I'm from New York, that New York is the best place anywhere. But when it comes to fitness, actually, New York has a much lower bar than most places. You go out to New Jersey or North Carolina or Florida, you have these schools with huge sports programs.
Right.
So at any gym there, whether it's a Gold's or a Gainesville Health and Fitness or someplace like that, the trainers are physical education majors, kinesiology majors, pre-PT, etc. Mm-hmm. But in New York, you're actually getting a substandard service because you've got people who, instead of working at a restaurant while they're waiting for their big break, are working at Barry's Boot Camp or working at a gym until they get that Broadway show. And hopefully a program like ours is going to change that and really show people that this is a profession, this isn't a hobby. This isn't just waiting tables until your big break comes along. You're dealing with people's health, you're dealing with people's bodies, and so you need to be educated about that.
Well, I think the earning potential in the fitness industry or the Halo sector has never been bigger than it is now.
Absolutely, and again, especially in New York and LA, trainers can charge more money than they can in North Carolina or Chicago or wherever. But that just makes it even more ironic that actually in those places you're typically getting the trainers who have big personalities but don't necessarily have the background to back it up, don't have the academics, don't have the knowledge to back it up.
So talk about how the Swedish Institute, became, a place for a personal training degree.
Well, Swedish Institute was originally the Swedish Gymnastics Institute. And if you look back at physical culture in the U.S., our physical culture is very much based on the German method and the Swedish method. So in the 1890s, we had sort of a golden age with McFadden and Sandow and all of these people, and we had structured physical education in school. And a man named Captain Melander came over from Sweden in the early 1900s. He had studied Ling's Swedish gymnastics method, and he opened the Swedish Gymnastics Institute in New York, and they taught boxing and wrestling and Swedish gymnastics, which was a series of therapeutic exercises. Soon after that, Swedish massage was created, but it wasn't P.H. Ling or Captain Melander who created that. It was somebody else, and that was for people who weren't healthy enough to exercise yet. Then after the Second World War, there was a split between physiotherapy, which is what we used to have in this country, and they still call it in Europe, and that profession turned into massage therapy and physical therapy. So Swedish Institute, those students in the early 1900s, they would go to Bellevue, they would go to the hospitals, that's where they would do their internships, and they were physiotherapists. But after the Second World War, that profession in this country became physical therapy, and then massage therapy was a separate thing. Swedish Institute kept on teaching massage therapy. but it became more of this Swedish massage spa kind of idea as opposed to the physiotherapy that it had originally been. When the economy got bad, late 90s, early 2000s, we had a huge influx of people looking to be retrained. So there was sort of a golden age, new golden age of massage, and a lot of different massage programs opened up. Swedish Institute had been for years the only game in town. But then the community colleges started opening massage programs, other entrepreneurs opened massage programs, and Swedish started to look for ways to expand. So they opened an acupuncture program, and the then owner, Paula Eckhart, asked me if I would be interested in creating a personal training program for them. So they have this long history of Swedish gymnastics, Swedish medical gymnastics, and then I come from a fitness background, from working at Sports Training Institute, working in corporate fitness. So we put these two things together and created a program that not only covers all the bases in terms of the knowledge, skills, and abilities of doing the work, but also teaches fitness entrepreneurship and how to be a life coach, a health coach, a wellness coach. Because ultimately, anybody can count to 10 and show you how to use a machine, but actually getting you to come to the gym, getting you to be aware of what you're doing the other 23 hours in the day when you're not in the gym in terms of nutrition and stress reduction, that's what makes for a long-term career. And that's what we teach in the program.
That's great. Thanks for the history lesson as well. I obviously didn't know about that. One of the things I found interesting when you're talking about the Swedish Institute and the program to go through versus some of the certifications that are out there is that you have a big career services effort and make sure that you get people gainful employment. So talk about how that differs. Obviously, if you get a certification, you go around and try and find yourself a job, and good luck. Well, how does it work with your firm?
Again, and for the irony file, your barista at Starbucks is probably more educated than your personal trainer in New York, because most of these kids who get out of NYU or Columbia or some other school with an English degree or a journalism degree or philosophy degree, they can't get jobs.
Right.
And so they're working at Starbucks or they're working at Whole Foods and they're still living at home. What's happened in this country is that the federal government, under the previous administrations, created these gainful employment laws. So colleges like mine, which is a for-profit proprietary career training school, we're actually held to a much higher standard than the NYUs and the Columbias, because we actually have to show that we're training our students and we're training them in a certain career, and then they can actually get a job in that career. And we'll lose our accreditation on our ability to give Title IV funds, which are the federal financial aid funds, as well as the state TAP and Pell grants, if we don't actually place these people.
And what's the percentage that you need to hit?
I believe it's about 80%, but you'd have to check specifically on the government website for that. But part of our job is not only to train these people, but then to help them get the interviews and help them get placed in a position. And what used to happen sometimes is, okay, you're training to be a medical assistant, but maybe you're not so good with needles, but if we can get you a job as a receptionist at a doctor's office, we can kind of pretend that you are gainfully employed in the field we trained you for. But now it's not that at all. Now, if you study medical assisting, you actually have to be working as a medical assistant. If you study personal training, you can't be just working at the desk at New York Sports Club. You actually have to be working as a personal trainer. So they really scrutinize not only do we get people jobs, but are we getting them the jobs that we trained them for.
So, one of the parts of the Halo sector in general, and I had worked with Massage Envy back, 12 years ago, and one of their biggest concerns of growing their business was having, certified massage therapists, and make sure that every time there was a new franchisee that they were staffed up properly. So, maybe talk for a moment about, what preparation level your graduates have versus the average person who's going and taking a certification, and then how do you kind of build that pipeline where you've got companies that are growing, that are always looking for, seasoned graduates?
Well, it's an interesting thing that you mentioned massage envy, because massage therapy is licensed in most states, but not in all states. And because it's not a national license, there is a very wide spectrum of the number of hours and the criteria for receiving a massage therapy license.
Okay.
So, for example, in Texas, it's like 500 hours. Okay. Different counties in California have different criteria. Different counties in New Jersey have different criteria. In New York, we have one of the highest, if not the highest, requirement. It's a 1,000-hour requirement. And Swedish Institute created a 1,250-hour associate degree program in massage therapy. So when people go through and put in 1,200 hours worth of training to take the New York State Board, which a lot of the different states use a standard exam that's for massage therapy that's created by the National Association of Bodywork or something like that. It's a long acronym. New York State creates its own test, and it's one of the hardest tests. So you've gone through all of this school, you have all of these student loans. Do you want to work at a entry-level job at a place like Massage Envy, where you're doing what we call club rubs?
Right, volume.
Volume, right? Or do you want to work for yourself, or do you want to work at a chiropractor's office, or do something that's more therapeutic in nature? Also, with a place like Massage Envy, now they have a lot of competition in terms of all of the apps that are available. So somebody can go to school and then they can run their own business on their phone because they just look up and they're the Uber for massage.
Yeah, like a Zeal or something
exactly,
like that. Yeah.
All of those kind of things. Interestingly, in terms of the personal training, one of our graduates from a long time ago actually worked with Massage Envy and created their new stretching program.
Okay, sure.
And so although to do massage in New York State, you need to be a licensed massage therapist, a number of our personal training students have actually worked for Massage Envy because they do the stretching sessions there.
Gotcha.
We have this career training, this career services department, and they contact all the hospitals and they contact all the different nursing agencies and all the different gyms, and we constantly get calls for graduates. Typically, especially with personal training and massage, there are typically more jobs than we have graduates. So if somebody's interested in going into the field and really being able to help people, if you take the time to get an education, then there are many opportunities open for you. And although a New York sports club or a Crunch will hire somebody who just studied on their own and got their certification when they went in and took the test, when I talk to the managers there, they say, when I think back on my 5 highest producing trainers, I can go back and 3 out of the 5 came from Swedish Institute. Because when you put in that time to get yourself an education, you don't just have a job, you have a career.
So how many people are in each graduating class, just the scope of size?
It varies. It varies. We can have as many as 20. We can have as few as 5. It depends on, because we take students in 3 times a year. So we're constantly going. We don't have summers off. We do winter, spring, and fall semester.
And is everything taught on 26th and? Or is it any of it remote?
For the most part, yes. So we currently have an agreement with New York Sports Club. So we do our hands-on classes at a New York Sports Club that is near the school. For a while, we had our own gym in the school, but We had to move the gym and reutilize the space or reallocate the space. So right now they do their hands-on classes at a New York sports club in the area, but all of their lecture classes and anatomy classes are at the school. And then in the degree program, they do a 135-hour internship, so they might be placed at Asphalt Green or at a New York Sports or a Crunch or an Equinox or any number of boutique gyms that we work with.
Got it. As you look into the future, and there's obviously a lot of corporations that are trying to bring more health-related services, awareness, education, maybe gamifying some of their participation. You know, do you see the future of your graduates potentially? I remember back in high school, you had like a guidance counselor. You know, like do you see like there's going to be kind of, you know, someone that's got multidisciplinary degrees from the Swedish Institute, and they become, you know, like part of HR? You know, where do you see the future of this going?
Well, there are a couple of things, couple of angles there. Certainly, we have a lot of students who have the massage therapy license and have gone through the personal training program. So there's definitely a blend of massage therapy and personal training that a lot of people use, and that really gets back to the old physiotherapists, right? And being able to work with the person 360 degrees. On the other hand, we have a medical system in this country that's for profit. And so I think that in a lot of ways, what happens in terms of our American physical culture is tied to what's going to happen with medicine, what's going to happen specifically with insurance. Will we switch to a one-payer system, or will we keep on trying to take money from people's suffering? And until that decision is made, exactly what's going to happen with personal trainers, what's going to happen with this idea of wellness and preventative medicine is really up in the air, because you got to steal from Peter to pay Paul. If we put the money into prevention, then we're not going to make the money with treatment. So where does that come in? Where's the more money to be made? Keeping people healthy or fixing them when they're sick?
Yeah, well, I think we unfortunately know the answer of how they've approached it to date. You know, from a standpoint of just make an analogy, a lot of health clubs right now are trying to live stream all of their classes and have those, you know, available in the home and on people's iPhones. You know, how do you view as the dean of a school to say, look, I know there's a significant benefit to people like walking into a class and learning and that interaction and the networking component. How do you kind of toggle between, all right, here's the traditional way of doing things and getting educated, to, okay, look, I'll put like a master class up online. It'll be swedishinstitute.com/personal training, and you could take this remote class. Or how do you personally feel about that?
It's a double-edged sword. I certainly see that there is benefit, and I have 5 different YouTube channels, and I love to make videos, and I think there's a benefit to that. But I think as a society in general, and especially when it comes to our physicality, you know, going out dancing is different than dancing in your living room. Right. Learning to dance with a partner is different than just doing your own thing freestyle. There's something that we're lacking in society in general in terms of community, in terms of working with others and interacting with others. We wait on a line where we're looking at somebody's back, but when do we come together as a community? So I think that the JCCs and the YMCAs, a secular version of that, you know, we need community. And as a juxtaposition, I'm not a huge fan, but I think CrossFit got this right. CrossFit created a community. And even though they might be zealots and acolytes, and they may be a little over the top for me personally, at least there's a community. So that's really the question is, yeah, you can kind of learn things from a video, but you can't really coach yourself.
Gotcha.
Right? We all need a coach. You need somebody to look at you and say, no, your knees aren't tracking over your feet. But it's the bigger picture of community that I think is really what we're losing when we look at these streaming services.
Yeah, I just moved into a new apartment, and I was mentioning to a friend of mine, like, there's no one on my floor that even when I'm at the elevator that they talk to me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's like, well, it's called an apartment. Like, you're supposed to be apart. You know, it's not like it's not supposed to be communal,
a community.
unfortunately. So as you see, increased demand from whether it's the fitness studios, the franchisors that are growing rapidly, how do you see Swedish Institute, potentially growing and aligning with some of these bigger groups to say, look, 100% of my graduates are going to get opportunities because there's a supply-demand, imbalance,
Right.
and people need to get
we
educated.
certainly work with all of the employers, and we have a scholarship for fitness professionals. So if somebody is already working at a gym in the field and they want to come and get their degree, we offer a scholarship that way.
Okay.
But our goal is not to work for one company or work with one company. Our goal is to work with all the companies because we want our students to be the ink master. We want our students to be the Iron Chef, that they can function in all of these different environments. So whether they're working in a community-based setting, in a healthcare-based setting, in a commercial setting, in a boutique setting, whether they're going to people's homes or doing boot camps in the park, they have the skill set to do all of those. So then what speaks the most to them? They can choose. So for that reason, we don't just work with one specific employer. But in our professional development classes, we have managers from Equinox and Crunch and New York Sports and lots of different sectors that hire personal trainers come in and talk to our students. We go on field trips to different types of gyms. So the sports performance, the commercial gyms, the community-based settings, et cetera, so they can really see what all the options are out there for them.
That's great. Well, as we build up our Halo Academy, we'd love to partner with you guys and make sure more and more people are educated to be successful in this sector.
Absolutely. That sounds wonderful.
I'll get my football, I'll throw it, and then I'll come pick it up at your place and hopefully meet some of your graduates and help what your initiatives are. And appreciate you coming on the show today.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vincent.